Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Good morning, Manitoba hockey fans, and welcome into our 2024 Christmas special of the Manitoba Hockey Podcast here on G-Show Productions. I'm your host, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth. Happy to be here for this pre-recorded edition of the Manitoba Hockey Podcast in Christmas 2024. I hope that everyone's celebrating the holiday has had a great one so far this morning. Hopefully for those that are hoping for a certain type of present end up getting it this year as well. Overall, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day as well. But in today's episode, we're going to have Cody joining the show. We did an interview back on Friday, and he joined the show to talk about the Winkler Flyers with me, the team he covers in the MJHL, with the, of course, defending champs, and Winkler being their play-by-play voice now for a number of years. So without further ado, Cody's going to be joining the show next, and then later on, after Cody leaves the show, we're going to be going through just different stats, standings, and all that good stuff from around leagues here in Manitoba. So without further ado, let's bring on Cody Wall on this edition of the Manitoba Hockey Podcast, the Christmas special, brought to you by Terrico, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, and Goaltenders. Cody Wall, the voice of the Winkler Flyers in the MJHL, joining this edition of the Manitoba Hockey Podcast. Cody, the Winkler Flyers, the latest power rankings have dropped. They're at number one in the latest power rankings because 4 straight shutout wins, Cody. I mean, for this team going 3-0 last week, what much else is there to say about how this Winkler Flyers team is really seemingly coming into their own at a high level here?
Yeah, like you said, they really seem to have come into their own as of late. 3 straight shutouts off the back of both goaltenders. Flyers just recently acquired goaltender from the Null in Leif Ekblad. And then the steady Eddie that's been there all year, backing up last year, is Liam Ernst. He had 3 shutouts himself before the Winkler Flyers in Leif Ekblad's first game, picked up another shutout to make it 4.
Yeah, and for Liam Ernst, the best save percentage in the league, when you're able to add a guy like Ekblad to this lineup, Cody, a team that's already so strong in the pipes and strong defensively in this Winkler Flyers team, how much does this really, on paper, take this team to the next level?
Yeah, and you know what? I do think the acquisition of Ekblad was a big move for the Flyers, kind of a sneaky move as they get to near the trade deadline in just a couple of weeks. They do have a solid goaltender in Liam Ernst. Like you said, he leads the league in everything, solid defense, and now just kind of getting that, now that kind of 1A, 1B type of goaltender now. I think you're going to see some push from both goaltenders now, as there's going to be a little bit of friendly competition as the season goes on to try and obviously now we've seen both goaltenders have had solid outings for themselves. Ernst, a little bit more proven playing last year and now carrying it into this year. And I'm excited to see what Ekblad has. Like I said, only 1 game so far, but he's got the makings to be a very good goaltender. Standing 6'5", over 200 pounds. He takes up a lot of that net once he's in there, and it'd be exciting to see how his time in Winkler progresses.
Cody, this winning streak, these four past games, all four shutouts, not only have they come against, good teams, but teams that are right behind this Winkler Flyers team in Portage, Niverville, Selkirk. They also, of course, beating the Winnipeg Freeze 7-0, as they're at the bottom of the East Division. But how huge has this stretch really been, taking into account how Winkler is now 4 points away from tying Steinbach with a game in hand on them, and given how close Portage, Niverville, and Selkirk are to them in the standings.
Yeah, you know what? It's a bit of a big month for the Flyers in December. As you said, a lot of divisional opponents. And you know what? They've fared well running in on a streak now. They take on the Steinbach Pistons here coming up tonight. So that'll be exciting as both teams sit atop of the league. That'll be kind of David, I guess, Vander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson type of bout. And you know it's exciting. You know the Flyers play a very solid defensive game, and they're able to contribute offense when the time comes. They have another number of players who are able to make their way up ice, find areas. Flyers recently getting guy back in Nick Goodmanson. He hasn't played a lot of games for the Flyers since they acquired him early. Had a bit of a setback with an upper body injury throughout the end of October into November. And now he's starting to kind of find his footing again. Obviously, the first 2 or 3 games, I think it took him a minute to kind of find those reads. You know, his first game back, he looked really good. Had a lot of good chances against, I believe it was the Blues, his first game back from injuries. A lot of good looks, not able to contribute on any of them, but you know, it was reassuring to see he found his way back into the score sheet a couple nights later.
Yeah, and of course, Goodmanson so far this season, when taking a look at his totals, uh, just trying to toggle the stats here. Oh, yes. 10 games played, 6 goals, 7 assists for 13 points. But Cody, this team, not with any players in the points inside of the top five or anything like that, but a team with a lot of depth, with the goals that they've scored this year, which has been 122 so far. How huge has that depth really contributed to this lineup success?
Yeah, you know what? They've been really good. They've got a lot of offense from their defense, and especially to start the year, I believe they had through the first 10 games, they had 4 defensemen with better than a point per game. Obviously, that pace dropped off for a bit of them now, but still able to get a lot of offense from the back end. And then they have guys who are able to sit in the slot and put away the garbage. And you talk about the depth. That's a big thing for the Flyers forward wise. They didn't have a lot of guys come back from last year's team. As I believe I've mentioned in prior broadcasts, definitely heavy on defense. Got 6 returning guys from last year's squad on the defense. But it's reassuring to see the guys who have come in and kind of established themselves here for the Flyers able to find a little bit of success.
Yeah, and the Flyers actually with 120 goals for, not 122. Got a bit ahead of myself, Cody. Maybe they get to that and maybe even over tonight against a very good Steinbach Pistons team. But you mentioned it, right? A lot of players, not returning from last year's team. Some key players who were a huge part of course, that team going on the run they did, winning the MJHL championship, and then going to the Junior A Nationals, right? But for the players that are back, that are looking like they've taken that next step, Cody, can you point them out for the viewers? Has it been a collective effort, maybe?
It definitely has been a collective effort, but there are some guys who kind of are at the top of the team. There's the guys like Jace Lagarde, and he's a fourth year flyer. Brody Boschman, another fourth year flyer. Second year flyer in Brady Craik from California. He's back with the team last year. He was a guy who played a bit more of a middle six, maybe lower end role last year in his rookie year. And now that, a lot of guys graduating out, going elsewhere, he's taken that opportunity and really run with it. Those are kind of the 3 guys. Oh, and I can't go without remembering to mention Nick McKee. He's another guy who He's been with the Flyers for a couple of years here. He's had a couple of solid seasons, but this year now he sits tied, I believe, at 30 points, at the top of the team lead in points. So obviously he's having a bit of a coming out party for himself. And those are kind of some of the guys who have stirred the drink there here for the Flyers this year.
Yeah, and funny enough, Cody, Legardin, Beauchemin, and McKee all tied with 30 points so far. Legardin with the best points per game average with one less game played than Beauchemin and McKee. But, in terms of that, you mentioned it with Legardin and Beauchemin being fourth-year Flyers, a second-year Flyer, of course, and they're in McKee. Talking about even though they lose guys, they still have a good nucleus of guys that, have seemingly come back, even though they did lose, some good talent.
Yeah, and obviously the Flyers had a little bit of turnover at the coaching position. They did lose last year's head coach in Justin Falk, and now brought in Matt Mello. And it's been a seamless transition. I think both coaching staffs and last year's championship winner in Justin Falk and his, assistants in Ryan White, Eric Fair, and Colton Bates. Those three all still with the team this year, joining Matt Mello. Had a good year last year, but it definitely, I think, a fresh voice. Not that it was needed last year, but fresh voice has the guys moving at a good pace, and I think everybody's buying in, much like they did last year.
So you feel like maybe the sense is it's keeping things fresh, maybe.
Definitely, yeah. I feel like, yeah, keeping things fresh.
For sure, I like that. I like that. And this Winkler Flyers team has certainly been getting better as the season's been going along. They take on the Steinbach Pistons. Cody, I believe and that game tonight against Steinbach, by the way, is, the top two teams in the East Division going at it. But Cody, last time you were on the show, we talked about certain teams that you feel like we're going to get better as the season went along. I believe we talked about Portage as well as Verdun, both those teams, middle of the pack in their division. Has there been any, surprises at this point for you in the year with kind of how the seasons have gone along, or has the cream kind of risen to the top when we talk about teams like a Dolphin now first place in the West?
A team that kind of surprised me as of late, and it's no slight at them. It was just more in the fact of the Niverville Nighthawks having a solid all-star goaltender on their squad in Raiden Legal. Obviously, since he's been called up to the WHL to play for the Everett Silvertips and earned himself, I believe, goaltender of the week cup about a week or so back, had a solid run as he's been with the Everett Silvertips. But in losing him, the Neverville Nighthawks, I thought you maybe see a little bit of a dip, as there wasn't going to be that same all-star goaltender. But you know what? They've done well. They've kind of, I think, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, not taken that as an excuse to maybe not win games. They've kind of, I think, galvanized as a group, and they're sitting not too far from the Flyers as the top of the top five of the East Division, all within 5-6 points.
Yeah, and that's putting that context into it, what makes this past winning streak that much more, bigger, I guess, better for this Winkler Flyers team, knowing that those teams are so close to them, as we've mentioned, Cody. But yeah, for this Niverville Nighthawks team, Adam Vig fussing with 36 points within the top 10, just in the MJHL right now. Cody, the Steinbach Pistons, a team that, Winkler has had many great battles against. That team taking on the Flyers tonight, as we've mentioned. What do you expect in this matchup? Do you expect the Flyers to be able to contain what's a pretty good Steinbach Pistons team when we take a look at their goals for, right? 136, the most in the MJHL. Stingy defense going up against high-powered offense. Both teams with good offense, but Steinbach, of course, with 16 more goals. What's the outcome tonight, you feel?
You know what? I see it being a very gritty affair. I think it's going to be hard to find goals tonight, as I think you're going to see both teams putting out their all-star quality goaltenders. I think you're going to see tight defense, hard checking, as these two teams don't necessarily like each other. I know every time I'm on the broadcast, I feel like a broken record when I mention how much the Steinbach Pistons and the Winkler Flyers don't like each other, but they have a mutual respect for each other because they've had some hard fought battles in playoff series, not just last year, but even going back to years prior when the Steinbach Pistons won the league championships. The Flyers took them late into a series and, very well could have found themselves on the right side, even going back 2 years ago before they won last year's championship. So I do believe it's going to be a very tough, hard fought game tonight. And it's going to be an entertaining one.
Yeah, and when we speak about goaltenders, I mean, Ekblad, I'm not sure if he gets the start tonight. I'm sure it goes to Liam Ernst as well as, we'll see if for Steinbach, Christian Green is going to be in the pipes as Green, 17 wins, second in the league. Ernst tied for third in the league with 15 wins. Cody Wall, always a pleasure, man, getting to talk to you about Winkler Flyers hockey and the MJHL in general. All the best to you this holiday season. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and can't wait to speak to you sometime in 2025, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Graham, and look forward to coming back on with you in the 2025 portion of the season.
Cody Wall joining this edition of the of the Manitoba Hockey Podcast. Was about to say the MJHL podcast, but yes, Cody on here, giving us all the latest from the Winkler Flyers, which of course will be showing their place in the standings, as well as showcasing one of their goaltenders in our statistics coming up from the MJHL, as well as from around all the other leagues here in Manitoba that we're going to talk about here today in terms of the standings and what's going down in these specific leagues. You're watching the Manitoba Hockey Podcast here on gshow Productions. More to come after this commercial break. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Welcome back to the Manitoba Hockey Podcast, our 2024 Christmas special, brought to you by Terraco, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, goaltenders, and as you just saw, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Had Cody Wall on the show for this Christmas special, the voice of the Winkler Flyers in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. And speaking of the Winkler Flyers, I think it's best time to take a look at their spot in the standings, as well as some other stuff here. We take a look at the points and goaltending leaders here in the league heading into the holiday break. Liam Ernst for the Winkler Flyers, right there in the thick of it, in the top of the wins category, tied third with Mitchell Kaffler in points. Connor Paranuzzi leading the way in points for the Steinbach Pistons. Miguel Bouvier right there, though, 2 points behind him with 4 more games played, of course. But as for how the final games of 2024 went, there's actually still one more to be played coming up on New Year's Eve in Steinbach, as Niverville will be taking on the Pistons. But speaking of the Steinbach Pistons, they end up dropping their most recent game to the Winkler Flyers. The Northern Blizzard with a strong end to their 2024 portion of the schedule too, as you can see there. As for when this league is going to resume in 2025, they're going to be starting up again in January 3rd after having a little break after the New Year's Eve action. These are all the matchups coming up in the first few days of the new year in 2025. Check out MJHL Hockey .ca for more details on the upcoming matchups. But as for the standings, the Pistons and the Kings both number one heading into what is the current holiday break. Winkler, of course, 2 points behind Steinbach with a game in hand on them. Their most recent win against Steinbach, a huge one given that context. Swan Valley and the Winnipeg teams remain at the bottom of their standings. The only teams who haven't cracked the 10-win mark yet in this league. Moving over to the Manitoba U18 AAA Hockey League, this is how the league ended off their 2024 schedule of play. As for how we're going to be starting off 2025, we're going to be resuming play again on January 3rd on Friday, like the MJHL will. And yeah, as for the standings, Brandon back on top heading into the break. Of course, the defending champions and the defending national finalists, as they ended up making it all the way to the TELUS Cup final last year and losing. Brandon, of course, hoping it's going to be a bit different for them this year, potentially, especially for those returning players coming back. Got to finish the job, though, as this is going to be quite, I think, the playoffs coming up in this league. Going to be very exciting. Connor Homeson of the Swift, current, not Swift current, the Southwest Cougars, leading the way in points with 48, as you can see there. The Bruins goaltender and Zach Matheson, rookie, he's been having a very strong season for himself, as well as Brady Lowe there, rookie, with only one regulation loss so far for the Brandon Wheat Kings. And yeah, they'll be, of course, getting back to action before we know it here coming up in 2025. But on to the Winnipeg High School Hockey League. Vincent Massey, Garden City, and Warren all atop of their division. Stonewall, Sanford, and Kildonan East, the Reveres, all at the bottom of their respective divisions there in the standings, as we can see. But in terms of the points in the Platinum Promotions division, Nolan Fielding, no one's been better than him so far with 45 points in 16 games played. Cam Sylvester has been getting a bit closer to Nolan than what we last saw, but yeah, still some good separation there from River East star player. Apo Tiomanen, Nathan Moffat, and Aiden Kuo have kind of been near the top for, I think, most of the season here in the league, and the goaltending leaders, and they sustain their spots, of course, heading in to the holiday break. As for the Free Press division, Grayson Wood with an impressive 30 points in 14 games played, just over 2 points per game. As for the Belleville Barracudas, they've been strong this season. Their goaltending has been a huge part of that, as Avery Seawalk tied for the most wins in the league with Sebastian Aguirre. Sorry, I just butchered that name, but yeah, Ethan Sinclair and Luca Pisi also with 6 wins each. On to the Price division. Well, the Louis Riel Voyageurs, they've been, only a one-loss team so far throughout their games, and no one's been better offensively in this league than their star forward in Luca Tetro, with 56 points in 13 games played so far. Goaltending-wise, the numbers not the strongest compared to the other leagues, save percentage-wise, but no one's been better in that regard in this league than Warren Wildcats goaltender Dallas Shaver, who a 908 save percentage, 1 shutout, and an impressive 9-0 record in 10 games played with only 17 goals against. So yeah, for more details, visit their website at winnipeghshl.ca. On to the female Winnipeg High School Hockey League. The Manitoba Women's High School Hockey League, as we take a look at Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. Glenlawn on top of Division 1, as we can see there. Quite the point differential between them and CJS, as Glenlawn's only dropped 1 game so far. I'd like to say it's a bit tighter in Division 2, which it is, I guess. Only a 7-point advantage that Sanford has over the Garden City Gophers, as Sanford's been really strong this season. And yeah, Dakota, no one's been better than them so far in Division 3 play, with a 12-1-0, 1-1 record. As for the points leaders, the Rigaud twins continue to impress, both leading the way, top two in points in Division 1. Celeste Pelletier for CJS, she continues to have an impressive year with 7 shutouts within her 9 wins, which is absolutely insane still to me, a mind-boggling stat in my opinion. On to Division 2, Alyssa Downing for Garden City. She's been really good. Let's not sleep on Serena Reeve, though, who's at 27 points in 13 games played. Best points per game average out of any player in the top 5 there, as you can see. For the goaltending, the Uchin girls in the top 5 here, as you can see as well. Hannah with an impressive 6-2 record and a 9.44 save percentage. Wow. So we see there. For Division 3, Eve Kubesh is the new point leader there, overtaking Kara Lasuk, who she's still in the thick of things there to potentially lead the way when it's all said and done in points for this team. But as for the goaltending, no goaltender been stronger than Elizabeth Peary and Emily Kay so far, as you can see there. Peary with an impressive 9.67 save percentage and an 8-2 record. For more details, visit their website at let's take a look here. Get the handle mwhshl.ca is where you can find the full stats and upcoming games for these schedules. First games back for both of these leagues, I believe, will be resuming first week back of school, so the week after the first week of January, so in a few weeks coming up. But yeah, we're of course your home for hockey here in Manitoba. We'll have all of the updates on what's going down in the high school hockey leagues, both the women's and men's here in Manitoba, as well as the MJHL, Manitoba AAA U18 hockey league and other leagues. We'll have the updates for you on what's going to be going down in all those leagues as we continue to progress here in the 2025 season, when we get back to covering all things Manitoba here on the podcast in the new year. We're going to take a transition here, and then I'm going to end off with some final words on this edition of the Manitoba Hockey Podcast on gshow Productions. Well, you made it to the end of our Christmas special for 2024 here on the Manitoba Hockey Podcast. I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. Special thanks to Cody Wall for coming on and being the guest in today's episode. Special thanks to our sponsors for sponsoring another edition of this show in the Manitoba Hockey Podcast, and McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Thank you to you, the viewer, for tuning in as well. If you are celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas to you all. Once again, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope it's been fantastic so far. To those who are watching and don't celebrate Christmas, well, I want to give a shout out to you all still. Wishing you all a happy holidays, and yeah, nothing but the best coming up in the new year. We'll see you again in the new year, everybody. Details for our upcoming episodes will be posted on our website at gshow.ca, as well as on our social media platforms. But for this next week, we're not going to be posting any more podcasts, any more content, as we're going to take a bit of a break for ourselves. We can't wait to be back in 2025, ladies and gentlemen. But until then, I've been your host, once again, as I said, Graham, the G Show Forsyth, giving you the peace out and waving so long. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and happy and safe New Year to all. Take care.